For centuries, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth was one of the largest states in Europe. It stretched from the Baltic Sea deep into Eastern Europe and was home to many peoples, languages, and religions. Unlike many absolute monarchies of the time, it was ruled by a noble republic. The king was elected, and the nobility held strong political rights through a parliament known as the Sejm. This system once made Poland a symbol of political freedom in Europe. But by the 18th century, the same system became a weakness. One rule in particular, called the liberum veto, allowed any single noble to block new laws. As neighboring states centralized their power and built strong armies, Poland struggled to reform. Russia, Prussia, and Austria watched closely. They did not see a strong kingdom. They saw a divided state that could be controlled, pressured, and eventually dismantled without a major war. By the middle of the 18th century, Poland's situation had become dangerous. The Commonwealth was surrounded by ambitious powers that were growing stronger every decade. Russia, under Empress Catherine II, had become a dominant force in Eastern Europe. Prussia, ruled by Frederick II, was expanding rapidly and seeking land to connect its scattered territories. Austria, led by the Habsburg dynasty, feared being left behind if its rivals gained too much influence. Inside Poland, political life was paralyzed. Foreign powers openly interfered in elections and internal disputes. Russian troops were already stationed on Polish soil, officially to keep order. In reality, Poland had lost much of its independence long before its borders were redrawn. By the early 1770s, all three neighboring empires agreed on one thing. Keeping Poland weak was no longer enough. Taking its land would be safer and more profitable. The first partition came in the year 1772. Without declaring war on Poland, Russia, Prussia, and Austria, each claimed large border regions for themselves. They justified their actions by arguing that Poland was unstable and incapable of governing its territory. In reality, this was a coordinated seizure of land. Russia took vast areas in the east, including parts of modern Belarus and Latvia. Prussia seized territory in the north and west, gaining control over key trade routes and linking its lands together. Austria annexed southern regions rich in agriculture and population, later known as Galicia. The Polish government protested, but it had no army strong enough to resist. Under pressure from occupying forces, the Sejm was forced to approve the loss. Nearly one-third of Poland's territory and population was gone. The Commonwealth survived, but it was deeply wounded. Shock from the first partition triggered a realization among many Polish leaders. If the state did not reform, it would disappear entirely. In the years that followed, reformers pushed for change. They wanted a stronger central government, a modern army, and an end to foreign control. These efforts reached their peak with the Constitution of the 3rd of May in the year 1791. It was one of the first modern written constitutions in the world. The Constitution limited the liberum veto, strengthened royal authority, and expanded rights for townspeople. For a moment, it seemed that Poland might recover, but these reforms alarmed its neighbors. Russia, in particular, saw a reformed Poland as a threat to its influence. Conservative Polish nobles, opposed to the changes, formed a confederation and asked Russia for help. Russian troops invaded once again, claiming they were restoring order. This led directly to the second partition in the year 1793. This time, only Russia and Prussia took part. Austria was distracted by wars in Western Europe. The losses were even greater than before. Russia annexed enormous eastern territories, pushing its border far westward. Prussia took key cities and fertile lands in the west, including areas that were economically vital to what remained of Poland. The Commonwealth was reduced to a small, fragile state with little real sovereignty. reformers were silenced, and Russian influence became overwhelming. For many Poles, it was now clear that peaceful reform was no longer possible. The disappearance of their country was no longer a distant threat. It was unfolding step by step, right before their eyes. The Second Partition sparked resistance across what remained of Poland. In the year 1794, a national uprising broke out under the leadership of Tadeusz Kościuszko, a military officer who had previously fought in the American Revolutionary War. The uprising aimed to restore Polish independence and defend the reforms of the Constitution of the 3rd of May. At first, the rebels achieved several successes and gained support from townspeople and peasants. Kościuszko called for the end of serfdom and tried to unite different social groups behind the cause of independence. However, Poland faced overwhelming odds. Russia and Prussia sent large, well-trained armies to crush the revolt. After months of fighting, the uprising was defeated. Kościuszko was wounded and captured, and the last hope for saving the Commonwealth through armed resistance was lost. With the uprising crushed, Poland's fate was sealed. In the year 1795, Russia, Prussia, and Austria carried out the third and final partition. This time, there was no attempt to preserve even the appearance of a Polish state. All remaining territory was divided among the three empires. Russia took the largest share, extending its control over most of eastern Poland. Prussia absorbed the central and western lands, including Warsaw for a time. Austria claimed the southern regions it had missed during the Second Partition. King Stanisław August Poniatowski was forced to abdicate and was taken to Russia. After more than 800 years of statehood, Poland disappeared completely from the political map of Europe. The disappearance of Poland did not mean the disappearance of the Polish people. Millions of Poles now lived under foreign rule, governed by three very different empires. In Russian-controlled lands, Polish political life was heavily restricted, and later rebellions were met with harsh repression. In Prussian territories, Germanization policies targeted language, education, and culture. Austrian rule was comparatively more tolerant, especially in the 19th century, but political power still rested firmly in Vienna. Despite these pressures, Polish identity survived. Language, religion, and historical memory became tools of resistance. Poland existed as an idea long before it could exist again as a state. The partitions of Poland had long-term consequences for Europe. They demonstrated how powerful empires could erase a sovereign state without a single formal declaration of war. The balance of power in Central and Eastern Europe shifted dramatically. Russia emerged as the dominant force in the region. Prussia gained territory that helped pave the way for the unification of Germany in the 19th century. Austria temporarily expanded its influence, but also inherited deep ethnic and political tensions. For many European thinkers, the fate of Poland became a symbol of injustice and the dangers of unchecked imperial ambition. Poland would remain divided for more than 100 years. It reappeared as an independent country only after the First World War, in the year 1918, when the empires that had partitioned it collapsed. The story of the partitions is not just about borders on a map. It is about how internal weakness, foreign interference, and power politics combined to erase a major European kingdom. Step by step, between the years 1772 and 1795, Poland was dismantled. Not because it was defeated in a single great war, but because its neighbors decided that it no longer had the right to exist.